Hey Mike, do you have a local story to tell us about
Yeah,
Bigfoot?
yeah. I got an interesting thing. Um, Actually, I've got a couple of different things on my mind, but I think what I'm going to talk about is um, the fact that uh, our study area, which is Santa Cruz County, pretty much. I mean, we go a little out. We'll go down into Monterey County and up into San Mateo County, but primarily we stick with Santa Cruz County, and that's because I really think that Santa Cruz County, because of a number of reasons, is a perfect subset of the larger phenomena in general. In other words, we have encapsulated in Santa Cruz so many aspects of the Bigfoot phenomena as to be staggering. And one of the phenomena that I'm thinking about in particular is the tendency for people to apply a local folk name to a particular Bigfoot that gets seen in a certain area over a long period of time. You've heard of the Honey Island monster and the well, anyway, I can't think of some of the other ones. Momo, the Missouri monster. There's these different names that get applied, believe it or not. And I've got two, as it turns out, that have shown up right here in Santa Cruz County. And I think this is significant, and that's why I think we have a really good example of Bigfoot going on right here. The first one I heard about happened when we first opened up the museum. A man came in who lives in Ben Lomond, which is in an area about 5 miles north of here in the valley here, and he's was having some experiences with a prowler, a Bigfoot that was coming around his home frequently. The prowler events started in the month of August, which is significant because that's when the fruit comes ripe. The apple trees in his backyard were ripe, and other fruit trees in the neighborhood. He had a couple of chickens he let run loose in his backyard, and they laid eggs all over the place. There was a little drainage behind his house, which was actually in a pretty steep gully. And a lot of water goes through there in the winter, but of course in the summer it's pretty dry with just a trickle down the bottom. And it was a major animal passage also. So there was heavy Bigfoot activity going around there, and over the years we've had repeated occurrences of sightings and reports right there in his neighborhood. So it was a pretty good story. And so a man came up from from Fresno way, who was a BFRO investigator. When this guy had the experience, he hadn't heard about our museum because it had only just opened. So he went online and he sent a letter to the BFRO and told them about his prowler, and they sent a man to check it out. And he put a camera in the backyard and tried to videotape it, and was unsuccessful. They think it actually saw the infrared light, and that's why it didn't step out, because they did hear it, but it retreated rather than going in front of the camera. But what was interesting, in the course of studying this, while he was here and checking out around the area, he went over to the state park, and he heard tell of a monster, which was referred to as the Ben Lomond dump monster. And then we had a man come in here during the summer of that same year who had gone to high school here locally. He was here for a school reunion from the East Coast where he now lives. And he knew me, so he had heard about the museum, so he came in just to say hi. And we were looking at our map of sightings around here. And it turns out that he lived in a neighborhood over in Ben Lomond back in the 1970s. And he told me that in this neighborhood, which is built around Newell Creek, and Newell Creek empties from Loch Lomond, which is the reservoir for Santa Cruz, and where we believe there is Bigfoot presence up near the loch. Anyway, he said that at the county dump, which happens to be built right on Newell Creek, just below the loch and above this neighborhood, people had seen from time to time an upright being rooting around in the garbage. At that time, there was an open landfill, and then you could go and pick through the garbage. So they were seeing this being in the garbage, and people in the neighborhood were all at Twitter and talking all about the screams that they'd hear in the middle of the night, these long, drawn-out, siren-like screams that nobody could identify, which, by the way, we hear to this date, and we've recorded over there ourselves. And the people were calling it the dump dweller, the Ben Lomond dump monster. So here we go. Here's a known and named local being. Now, I have one other one that I found out about just last summer. A woman came into the museum, and she lives in an area that's on the western side of Nicene Marks Park, another area where we have a myriad of Bigfoot reports. And on that side of the park, there's a creek there, Olive Springs, and there's a quarry, the Olive Springs Quarry. And as I pointed out before, Bigfoot sightings do tend to happen frequently around quarries. So this woman came in and said she lived in that neighborhood, and then she said to me, "Gee, have you ever heard of the Olive Springs Howler?" And I said, "Oh, well, the Olive Springs Howler." I said, I think I can imagine what that might be. And then she told me, well, it's some animal that screams in the middle of the night, that just scares the bejeebies out of everybody, and nobody can figure out what it is, and we just call it the Olive Springs Howler. And everybody figured it must be a wolf. Well, there's not supposed to be any wolves in Santa Cruz County. There are lots of coyotes, however, and a few Bigfoot. So there you have it, 2 local folk names applied to ongoing experiences of a Bigfoot, and 2 areas that we have had a myriad of reports of sightings and vocalizations.